Disclosure! I received a free code for the PlayStation 5 version of this game. Huge thanks to Idea Factory International for sending me a review key for Touhou Spell Carnival. I can't believe I get to say that! Touhou Spell Carnival is the latest big-budget Touhou fan game. Earlier this year, we got Danmaku Kagura's reimagining and Touhou New World's excellent DLC. But Spell Carnival offers something those didn't: originality. Spell Carnival is unlike anything I have ever played, Touhou or otherwise. But does that lead to a good game? The first thing that stuck out to me about Spell Carnival was the production value. With Touhou fan games, you generally come to expect good music. But this can go one of two ways. Sometimes, a soundtrack is mainly remixes with sort of filler songs for incidental moments. Sometimes the soundtrack forgoes remixes altogether, such as with Labyrinth of Touhou. Spell Carnival has good remixes, but it also has good original songs. The second standard battle theme is one of my favorites. The remixes are also nice and can go surprisingly deep. The Heartman's Yokai Girl remix clearly takes influence from the Trojan Green Asteroid version. So with both good originals and good remixes, Spell Carnival is already a bit above most Touhou fan games. The graphics are also quite nice. You've got what I assume are live 2D portraits, a lot of CGs, and these cute chibi 3D models. Another huge plus to the game's presentation is that it's fully voiced. We've had voiced Touhou fan games before, but none to this big and complete of a scale. Even Kagura's original version left some combos unvoiced. Every single line in this game, no matter how minor, is voice acted. The voice acting adds a lot to the presentation, and you get some cool takes on Touhou characters. Marissa speaks with a nice, deep voice. Tenchi speaks super fast, which fits how self-important she is. The voice acting also elevates something I was pleasantly surprised by: the writing. There have been big fan games with good writing, but Spell Carnival manages to stand out. The main narrative is probably more of what you'd expect. You have an incident that coincidentally brings together the most popular Touhou characters. Reimu and Marissa have a lot of fun banter. The other characters each get a scene or two, yada yada yada. It's fun and fits the tone of the series, but it's nothing mind-blowing. A lot of these big Touhou fan games run into what I call the Ray-Mari problem. Because Reimu and Marissa are the main characters in most fan games, they often get a lot of dialogue. But then, other characters get left behind. Spell Carnival manages to avoid this problem by implementing something that I'm surprised hasn't been tried in many Touhou fan games: side stories. Every playable character gets 4 unique stories that sort of walk you through a day in their lives. They're not all winners. I think this game's Mariali relationship feels pretty dated, but on the whole, the quality of these stories is up there with some of the best written Touhou works. These stories often highlight a character's strengths. Satori gets a cool story where she brokers with peace deal between stray cats and crows, highlighting her relationship with animals and intelligence. The game also uses its limited cast to its advantage. You get a lot of unique pairings. For example, there's an entire storyline about Sanai trying to build a giant robot with Alice. You can feel that the writers over at Sting Interactive love these characters. And then, there's a character I've been dying to talk about ever since I got the review code.
私これまでも新聞なんか読まなくったって楽しく生きてこられたよ。それじゃあこれからもやっぱり読む気はないと？わあ、すごい綺麗な笑顔。
Touhou is awesome in this game. Gameplay-wise, she provides important defensive utility that can be the key to winning. But writing-wise, she's amazing. She's still got her bird brain, but it's mashed with innate kindness and great perseverance. In one story, she helps teach Tenshi how to become friends with stray cats after becoming friends with one herself. How is she so good at that? Because she hangs out with Orin, of course. In one of Satori's stories, when Satori asks if Koichi or Oku's read the newspaper recently, Oku apologizes wholeheartedly because, well, she's never read a newspaper. She probably doesn't know how to. There's a lot more Oku moments throughout the story that I'll keep unspoiled. What I will say is this. I think the best thing a Touhou fan work can do writing-wise is make you like a character more. It's one thing to write someone acting in character, but it's another to evolve the character with your own writing. I like Oku a lot more now, and that's something that will last with me beyond this game. Spell Carnival's got fantastic presentation and some excellent writing. I think there's a lot of Touhou fan games that have good gameplay, and meh, everything else. This game doesn't fall into that trap. But like, what about the gameplay? You might look at some footage and think, this looks very overwhelming and super hard. And yeah, it can be at times. I will say right off the bat that the game has a high learning curve, but I think the game kind of plays into this. For one thing, the order you get certain units can change. The game has branching paths at points in the story to choose who you want to recruit. So if you replay the game, you can mix up which units you use throughout for a fresh experience. The game also has side battles with their own incentives, which I'll talk about later. Because the game has side missions and replayability considerations, I think the developers knew very well that the game is a bit daunting. But how does the game actually play? You know that chess meme with the Touhou boss? Yeah, that's this game. Like, you think there'd be some variants from that meme, but no. You actually dodge Touhou-style bullets in all their directions on a grid. This surprisingly works out a bit better than you'd expect. Where it can be a bit hard is when you're managing a team of characters. There are shortcuts to move all characters at once, which I primarily used, but this will inevitably lead to some stray bullets hitting. The game's also played in real time, so it's pretty stressful. But as you play more and more, moving characters around gets easier. Above all, I'd say movement is the most important part. You can't brute force most levels with attacks. You're gonna have to find good positions to avoid bullets. Attacks for both the player and enemy happen based on action meters. You wait for unit meters to recharge to either use skills or to graze between bullets to avoid damage and build up a separate spell card meter. Damage taken over time can also fill your spell card gauge, which allows units to use super attacks. There's a quick burst attack option that lets all of your units fire an attack at an enemy. As it takes a while to select each unit's strongest attacks, I often found myself using the burst option. I'm mixed about this because while the game is still fun this way, I think finding a more intuitive way to select attacks would have made it even more fun. But I did still use some of my stronger attacks. Reimu's buff and heal skills proved invaluable, and Oku could switch between defense and attack skills. Every unit feels pretty distinct, which is very impressive for a strategy game. Satori can become a second copy of any other unit, and Oku has her defensive walls that block out other bullets. The farther you get into the game, the more unique each unit gets, which is cool. I ended up running the tried and true Reimu and Marissa, but then rotated my remaining 3 slots with a slight emphasis on damage. I think there's likely several team comps you could use to get through the game. A smart system the game implements is how it handles enemy kills. Enemies shoot a lot of bullets a la Touhou, so getting rid of even just one can be a huge help. But every enemy also drops a moving crystal once you defeat them. These can turn the tides of the game. Crystals can do various things, such as refill a bomb that can be used as a burst option, or restore health to the entire party. Some missions have you kill every enemy, and some have you simply kill the boss. Some of my favorite strategy moments were figuring out which enemies were worth taking out per level. I played the game on normal, and the difficulty was interesting. It starts off fairly easy, but you'll sometimes face a level that feels impossible. If you think you need to level up characters to learn new skills, then you can try doing challenge levels. These are versions of story levels that offer item drops and EXP rewards. Importantly, beating levels with characters is how you unlock their side stories, so you're encouraged to try experimenting with different characters. Who knows, maybe you'll find a team composition you like. You can do these levels in between the main story sections, which is also where you can visit the Hakure Shrine. This is where you can view side stories and buy items. You can also buy charms to give a random buff per level. It's always worth it to buy a charm, so do that. Although the shrine itself is small, it adds a lot of charm to the game. It's a sort of base you can always go to, and it's cool to see more and more characters come by as you progress through the game. You've also got missions that reward you with items that can help make stages easier. So between challenge levels, the shrine, missions, and unlocking side stories, grinding actually doesn't feel too bad. But here's the thing. While grinding can make the game easier, and can be the answer for you, it's not exactly needed. Oftentimes when I've stuck on a chapter and leveled up, I realized that in reality, I was just approaching the level the wrong way. Maybe I needed to improve movement, or maybe I was targeting the wrong enemies. I didn't have to level up if I was a bit smarter, but even still, finding the right path to victory was satisfying. So, despite how brute force the game can look with the shortcuts and level ups, I do think it offers a pretty satisfying gameplay experience. And it's certainly one you've never played before. With the great presentation and solid gameplay, yeah, this game's good. Although, I think a valid concern to have is the price point. I got the game for free, so I can't speak without bias, but I will say this. My final playtime for my first run of Spell Carnival ended up being around 10 hours, which seems a bit short relative to other games in the genre. But, I think with the branching unit system in the story, and eternal quest to master the game, I'll probably be playing the game again. I already started a hard mode run, and have been able to pull off more satisfying strategies while also using some new units. If you end up liking the game, then I think from replays, you'll get your money's worth. But, it's a bit hard to judge if you will like the game or not. I wish there was a demo to give people a taste of the gameplay, since, again, the game is unlike anything else I've ever played. So, if all of this doesn't sound like enough to warrant $50, maybe wait for a sale. But all in all, I had a really good time with Touhou Spell Carnival. Fantastic presentation meant that even outside of gameplay, I was having a great time. The game's writing is a big highlight, and thanks to its side story system, the game manages to provide fun stories for all of its characters, not just Reimu and Marissa. Oku especially has a lot of great scenes. And then the gameplay is a lot. But after learning all of the mechanics, the gameplay is fun and does indeed offer some satisfying strategy. Out of all of the big Touhou fan games that have come out in the past 3 years, this one's the most original, the most polished, and the most focused. So yeah, if this all sounds cool, check out Touhou Spell Carnival.